I grew up sailing with my dad, and you know the bit I loved the most was preparing the boats, varnishing and fixing and sanding.
Travelling and sketchbooks are still really integral to what's important to you. Big shapes, big marks and beautiful lines.
New shaped canvas became the new language for me.
You've been fearless in your exploration.
Things happen when you push it to the limits.
Hello, it's my pleasure and my privilege to be talking today to a wonderful artist called Karen Stamper. She is well known for her exquisite collages, her colourful abstract boat subject paintings, the unique way she uses concertina sketchbooks, her courses, and she's won lots of prizes, and her more recent work we're all very excited about. It's going in a new direction and I can't wait to show you. And if you haven't come across her before, you're in for a real treat, because not only is she a very capable artist, she's a lovely person, very generous and energetic. And here she is. Hello, Karen.
Hello, Kate. Thank you very much for inviting me to do this. I love sharing what I'm doing. And it's great to talk to you because I haven't seen you for ages.
It's fun.
So I did CVP, Creative Visionary Programme, in 2017. And I encouraged loads of people to do it. And I believe I encouraged you, didn't I?
You told me I had to. So before we reminisce too much about our happy days doing CVP, what we really want to do is come and look inside your studio, because it's just such a treat. It's a real gem of a place.
Thank you.
Earlier, we were at Karen's home, where at the end of her enchanting garden is this very special space.
So here we are in my studio. This is my special space. It is only 8 foot by 16 foot, but it's compact, but I make it work for me. I have all my equipment and tables around the sides, and I have a fantastic big back wall that I've cleared. So it works for me, even though it's small, it's wonderful, and it's only, that far from the kitchen. So I have different areas. This is my storage area for all my paints and tools, really. So I can grab them there, and they have to stay in that small space. Below I've got my drawers for some papers. This is my paintbrush pile, and normally here I'd have a water pot. So I work at this table, and I've got a second table there that is higher, which is great for me because I stand up all the time. One of the best things in my studio is these little white shelves that I put up here. I can rest things on them quite easily when I'm working, and those nails are really useful for just hanging little bits and pieces as well. I have my paints in pots there that I've mixed up. So this is the tall table that I work at. When I am sawing and cutting, I've got a little, and I've forgotten the name of it, vise there, which kind of works. So then if I come round past the shelves, then I have my back wall, which is my only big clear space really, and I often have one piece on that back wall. Around the sides here, I just got this unit which I love, which has got these pull-out shelves. So I've got collage papers in here, and also in all the boxes here. This I love. Look at this beautiful rudder, and that's connecting to my work at the moment, but he just stays there because I love him. Then along here I've got my bits of wood, because I'm working a lot with wood now. More collage pieces. This chops and changes, but I've got collage papers, work that's half done. And then we come to the section here where I've got my sketchbooks. I've got boxes of bits of paper, supposedly labelled from 1 to 10 in colours, tones from light to dark. And I've also got some other special boxes. And here I've got magazine folders of different countries and different collage papers for when I go out sketching with the sketchbooks. And I think we're back to the beginning.
And I see you've got some words on the wall here.
Yes. You know, often we're working away and we get a little stuck, and you turn around and you see something that says, it should surprise you. And you're like, you know what? It's not surprising me at the moment. I need to get back to that. So yeah, words are good. I don't write a lot in my sketchbooks, but I do like to just look up and think, yep, that's what I'm supposed to be doing at this point.
And I see a CD player. Is music important to you?
It is. When I come in here and close the door, it's like a sound box in here. I've got the CD player, and now I've come up to date and I do have Spotify. And when I'm not in my studio, my partner Richard comes in and plays his saxophone. So there's always a fantastic energy in here. I think it's the music and the art, and it's, yeah, I love my music. Got to have that on.
I love the idea. So put the music on, put the ovals on.
Yep.
And does that sort of help you get into the zone to get started and get going?
My famous grey overalls, I often step in these at the back door, actually. So as I come out the back door, I step into my overalls, and as I come down the garden path, by the time I get here, light on, overalls on, music on, cup of tea, ready to go.
Dropping into the whole process.
Yeah.
And just looking at this pile of sketchbooks, I mean, here we're just going to have a treasure trove of goodies. You've taken sketchbook practice to a new level with these concertina sketchbooks, and perhaps we could have a little look through some of them and open a few out.
Yeah, I use these C-White concertina sketchbooks. They have 70 sides in total, so the back and the front I use the back and the front. This one was out on location in St Abbs up in Scotland, working from the harbour there. And there's collage. You can see, if you come in here, this is a piece of orange netting you buy oranges and lemons in. So there's all kinds of collage on there. There's different papers underneath, and then I'm drawing at the same time as well. So I'm actually taking these on location. I don't generally work on them back in the studio. They are all done, in the place. But then I develop that into bigger pieces of work.
Brilliant. Well, I think we need to stretch these out. So let's take them with us and we can see how they lead into your paintings. And that would be fantastic.
Okay, let's take some.
Great. So we're now in a different space, Karen. We've come down the road. Can you explain what happens here?
Yes, I hire this unit 2-3 times a year when I really need to come and spread out. A lot of my work when I'm working in my studio is stacked up on the back wall, and I have to take one piece out at a time to work on it. So I really need to come here and spread all my bigger pieces out and consolidate and step back and look at them and develop the bigger work.
Well, I mean, we love your garden studio, and I think it's amazing how much over the years has all come out of what is really quite a humble space. So this must be fantastic. So as we said, we're in Cambridge in England, and that is well renowned for top-class university, beautiful buildings, students, high-tech developments, all sorts. But for those that don't know, it is nowhere near the coast. So I'm thinking we need to go back, please, and have a bit of understanding where you're originally from and your connection with your coastal subjects.
Okay, so I'm from East Yorkshire. I was actually born in Withensea, which is on the coast, but I grew up in Hull, which is a gritty urban coastal town with a harbour and a port. So that was the visual imagery I had growing up. So it was quite, lots of structures and ships. When I went to art college, I did silkscreen printing, which I absolutely loved. And then towards the second year, I had a travel scholarship to Paris. That set me off on my travels. I realised there was much more colour and life away from Hull. So from when I finished art college, I went off travelling for a few years. I did come back and do my teacher training for a year at one point. Then I went off travelling again for a few more years. And the boats came in the last 10 years, say. But on my travels, I actually worked with sailing holidays as well. I grew up sailing with my dad, but when I was traveling, I worked with sailing holidays. And the bit I loved the most about the sailing holidays was preparing the boats before the season and at the end of the season. So it was actually all that work in the harbour when you are varnishing and fixing and sanding and repairing. So that was the bit I loved. And that's coming through in my work now.
And your family obviously enjoyed the coast, and did they encourage your artistic pursuits, and were they quite supportive of the budding artist?
Yeah, my dad used to set us homework every Sunday evening, and my other two siblings, they had to do serious homework, whereas I had to sit and draw. So it was very nice Sunday night homework. And my grandparents were artistic. My mum's dad painted, and my mum paints still now and again at 91. She has a concertina sketchbook.
Cool.
And my other grandma was very creative as well, and she was a traveller. So yeah, it was in there. The art and the travel was in my family.
In your genes.
In my genes, I think so.
And being encouraged and given the opportunity to do it. Just...
Yeah, and my dad was always encouraging me. We had a big oil tanker in the garden, and I painted a badger and some scenery on there, and anything that needed painting creatively, I was given the paintbrush to do it, as well as the painting and decorating.
How fantastic. So I'm under the impression that travelling and sketchbooks are still really integral to what's important to you and really excites you.
After art college, I travelled for about 10 years, but I was working as well. But I always had my sketchbooks with me, but I travelled with a couple of fine liner pens and a sketchbook. And you know, remember the massive SLR cameras? That was my art bit of my rucksack. But I also collected collage papers along the way, because I didn't have any paints or anything with me, but I collected papers. So when I eventually stopped travelling, I was living in New Zealand, I had boxes and boxes of collage papers, as you say, lots from Europe and India and lots of different places. And then I started doing editorial work for magazines, and that's where the collage papers came into their own, and I started using.
So you were doing sort of graphic design work?
Yeah, it was book covers and illustration work, really. And the work I did from art college, it was still screen printing, but it was in an illustrative way. So, and I did some collage work as well. But as soon as I left art college, I trotted off to London with my massive A1 folder and went to places like all the big magazines. And I did get some work in Time Out magazine straight away. So I thought, hey, this is it, I've made it. But of course you have to keep doing, that's relentless, you know. And I wanted to go travelling.
So the sketchbooks that we were looking at before we came through, the fishing boat sketchbooks and all these wonderful pages and pages where you've sat in amongst the harbours and the nets and this capturing, and they're so evocative. Your wonderful use of line and sticking bits on. And from those, you can sort of see how the subject then developed into your paintings. I'm thinking of A Good Day's Catch. You can sort of see a connection, but what is so challenging sometimes is to recreate that wonderful magic that you can get in a sketchbook when you're then wanting to work on a new piece, because you don't want to be trying to recreate the page. You don't want to be copying the page, but you obviously, how do you get the work from your sketchbook into new paintings?
Well, that's everybody's problem,
yeah,
isn't it?
That's why I asked.
We all know that issue.
What's the secret?
Yeah. So you're working away in your sketchbook, and the concertina sketchbooks are wonderful because they go on, and I prepare them before I go. I add some collage papers and some tissue and some inks. And if it's a place I know and I've been before, I love going to Essaouira in Morocco. It's a beautiful harbour there, full of old wooden boats. But from my previous trip, I would have some photographs. I would scan those, photocopy them, stick those in my book, or bits of them. So when I arrive, I've got pages with collage, with some ink, with maybe some line on there already. So I've got something to respond to. So then when I'm working away on my sketchbook, I'm adding collage papers. I love working with big Posca pens, big bold Posca pens. And I'm working from the scene in front of me, and more my books are getting more abstract. But the early ones, there's quite a lot of realistic boats on there. So there's many layers and surfaces. So then translating that into the bigger work is hard. It's everybody's problem, you know, because we think we just scale it up, but that doesn't happen. So then I have to scale up all the materials I'm using in the sketchbooks. So I need bigger collage papers, I need bigger pieces of scrap paper, I need bigger, when I say scrap, I mean the paper I've collected along the way. I need to find bigger pieces like billboards rather than little postage stamps. I need to peel bits off a billboard. So everything has to scale up. Paintbrushes have to scale up, your marks, you know, a lovely fine line in a sketchbook with a Posca pen. When it's on a piece of work, it's a paintbrush width. So all those things have to scale up. So it took me a while to work out how to build up those surfaces that would have the energy and the excitement of the sketchbook. and that's always ongoing. But really my sketchbooks, I work on them on location, and when I'm back in the studio, I work from the experience of being out on location and the memories and the smells and the shapes, but I don't particularly look in my sketchbook.
It's all inside you now, and you just trust that it's within.
Yeah, you've absorbed it.
You absorbed it, and it's now your opportunity to let it come out and be free to do something different with the experience.
Yeah, and to occasionally I will go back to the book and look for a small section, which is probably quite abstract, but it might be just a line or a shape or a curve or a group of shapes, and then I will try and get that going on a bigger piece, but it's never copied at all from the books. They have a world of their own, really, the sketchbooks. They're there and they're very integral to this work that I do, but they're not, I don't have them open in my studio all the time.
We're looking up here, we have time worn.
Yeah.
You see, and it's wonderful lines and marks and shapes, and I'm nearby, I can touch. They're so full of texture. Yeah. And when I went to your exhibition at the John Russell Gallery, so 2018, I was blown away because you managed to combine these really bold, abstract shapes with just enough detail and line to suggest, a hook or a crane or some nets or a buoy or fender, whatever they are. Yeah. But there was so much that you left out. You gave a lot of, you were very good at editing, and you gave a lot of space for the viewer to have their own emotional response, because you really stimulate all the senses. You could smell the sea, and the hair. You can just look at your pictures and hear clanking. You have this real poetry, which is just a wonderful thing. How you simplify things down and pare them back. It's hard.
Well, I think there's a lot in that. You're just saying. As I work, I realise then more and more about the surface, about this is paper and acrylic, and it's sanded back and it's worn and it's scraped and scratched, as those surfaces are on the ships and boats. But if I didn't have this curve here and the little propeller here and maybe that corner there, would it still feel like a boat? It could be quite abstract, but I want to give people a clue. You hear so many people say, oh, abstract, I don't understand it. So I want to give a few clues to help people get in to the feeling. But as you've explained it sounds like you're getting the feeling completely. Like you say, the sounds, the smells.
It's so
but with just that little bit of detail to help people who think they don't get it, basically. And the same with this one here. All my boats, I don't know if you've noticed, they're never floating nicely in the sea. They're always up on the hard, which means they're out the water on the sticks or on a hoist. Basically, they're out for repairs for the winter. And they start to teeter on those legs, which I like. So often my paintings are a portrait view as well, rather than landscape. So yeah, it's that surface is the thing that's become very important to me, and I'm sure that's what you're picking up on when you're getting the feeling of it.
Well, it's when there's a chance of seeing things as opposed to on a screen, seeing them up close. Yeah. They're just so rich.
Not flattened, are they?
They're not flattened, they're so rich, and you just want to touch them. And Colossus, it's the combination of big shapes, big marks and beautiful lines that are lost and found. They're really exquisite, the way you build up the layers.
There are probably, in this one, maybe 8-10 layers there. And like we said about scale, this tiny detail of pattern here against the massive hulking shape of a ship. And that's what I love as well, that extreme scale and tiny bits of wiring against big rusting shapes. So yeah, it's the differences.
Because the scale, when you're actually in a boatyard, they are...
Yeah, it's funny you do that, because my work has always got this loop or this boat shape, and I was thinking about the boats when they're on the hard and you walk through them, they're like these hulking great dinosaurs.
Monsters, yeah, they are.
They're standing there, but they somehow feel very protective because they're around you, and they've got this curved shape, which is a calm, cupping, holding shape.
Something very secure feeling.
So these two I kept from CVP. They are Shores of Need and Suspended. And this one, I love it because I was throwing everything at it, everything Nick was teaching us. There's scratching through the paint there, there's some collage underneath, and it's quite thick with layers of paint. And then this one was just after, and I've moved it on more with my theme. And again, there's many different layers there. You really need to feel these, touch these paintings.
But it was the tactile surface and really respecting your layers and torn edges and things that really hit me in the exhibition, and I couldn't leave without one. So I bought this, and it was the first time I'd bought a painting, apart from probably buying things off student friends for minimum amounts, that it was just, there's this lovely surface, and then you see this sort of luggage label, treasury tag with string going along and all the snippets coming through. And it's just very tactile. And I really do love it. It was less boaty than the others, which amused me that I went for something more abstract. But what I find interesting now, 7 years later, you can really see a connection to these large shapes and what you're doing. This could be sawn off wood almost, couldn't it? And ropes. It's fascinating, these signposts that you can get early on.
And I really loved this one. Like I say, I was moving away from all this cluttered look as well, and it was abstract. I think I'll have this one back, please.
Can we touch back on CVP and how it affected your art and your experience?
I did CVP in 2017, and it was the best thing at that time for me. It was, and I'm sure many people sign up for the same reason, it was the arts college the art college teaching that we never had at art college. When we were quite a few of us, we were desperate for that information and that encouragement and all the things you get from CVP. But the things I really took from it was working on 12 panels at once. They were manageable, these 30 by 30 panels, but to keep doing, to redo, and I love that. And actually to have fun with paint, to scratch it off, to scrape it off, to just keep doing it, to take away that about acrylic paint. Because before that I was working really completely in collage papers. I'd started to work slowly with acrylics, but this was the time when I really let loose and had fun with acrylics. One of the key points I remember was the fairground. Make sure you can visit all the things in the fairground. Yeah,
good girl.
And differences. These are the things that stick in my head, and I've always got them in my head. Differences in scale, tone, everything. And I can hear, the difference between the tiny scale and the big scale. And the adjustments, actually. Watching somebody online adjusting somebody's painting was so new. We've never seen at that point artists adjusting other people's work, or artists sharing actually how they progress a painting. This is before online courses, really. It was before lockdown, before everyone
it was
started to
very
make courses.
new and exciting.
So to see an actual painting being changed in front of your eyes was incredible.
It really leads us into where the next work has come from. We can see the connection, but the new work is very different. And how did it come about? How did it escape from being on a canvas to being objects? What do we call them? Do we call them assemblages?
I call them, at the moment, I call them collage assemblages.
Collage assemblages.
Or wall sculptures, but they're still very flat. Mm-hmm. So they came from, my subject was definitely the boats and the boatyard and the weathered and the worn. And then I was away in Greece one summer, a couple of years ago, and I was working with a limited palette. I had the beige napkins from the hotel, and I had some black paper and some white paper, and it was very near a harbour I could cycle down to and take my sketchbooks down and a glue stick and some scissors. So I started working on these small, quick throwaway collages that I didn't pin up anyway, I just did them, put them to one side. And then when I came home, I pinned them all on the back wall in my studio. And we've actually got I can just show you a picture of them here. I've got one. So this is the back wall of the studio. And these are all about A4 size. And I loved how I'd simplified down from these. You know, you ask about how do you be so confident with shapes. When you're working with 2 or 3 shapes or 5 shapes, it really make it very clear. Yeah. So I started working, I did all these paper ones, and then I worked with a mentor, Emily Wall, and she said to me, you know, you need to break out. I can see from these you need to break out from the square. So I was working, still had some smaller ones on the 30 by 30 panels, and she said, cut it up. So, go. This is a 30 by 30 panel, and you would not believe the joy when I found a jigsaw that I had from about 20 years ago in the shed, and I pulled it out and screwed it back together. And to cut through a wooden panel with a jigsaw, it was just delight. I just loved it. And then stuck them together. I think this might have been 2 panels, I'm not sure. That curve could be that one, yeah. And of course, here there's no extra stuff. You are cutting away, you know, it's even clearer. You're getting rid of the extra stuff you don't need. And I love the way it's starting to teeter, and this rough, rotten bit from the back, you know, from the edges of the panel, become part of it. It's like the keel of a boat. And this pour, I just wanted this massive shape, but I wanted different material to collage. So I've poured the acrylic paint and it's dribbled in this direction. So it became, this new shaped canvas became the new language for me, and I decided I wanted to celebrate the shapes. These pieces became my collage pieces. Instead of those bits of paper, the wooden panels became my collage pieces, and that's what led me to even bigger pieces.
Well, we must look at some of these bigger pieces. We've got a lovely one here beside us. Can you remind me of the name of this one behind us?
Ghost Shipments, this one.
Ghost Shipments.
This is, as I said, wooden panels, but you know this centre strip? I'll tell you the story of this. It was in a skip, and this is where it's from somebody's bathroom, and this is where the light switch was. And if you can see it, it says frame, and this is what I love. These are man-made marks made with no artistic idea in mind. These are functional marks. This is where the shelves were. This is where someone's dribbled a bit of paint. This was the light switch. Then I've added bits to it. You know, there's the nail holes up here. So somebody else's marks are what excite me. These found marks that if I'd written that on there, it would seem a bit contrived, but the fact it was on there. So then I've added these pieces here. And like the earlier one, these tiny snippets of paper that I excavate that are underneath. So there's still layers of paper underneath. And then I can scrape and scratch it back till that comes through. Tiny bits here and here. And it's still a ship shape at this point.
Ship shape.
Ship shape. There is one called ship shape. Yeah. But I love the fact that there's a found pieces, and I'm forever searching skips, and I'm never going to find another good piece like that.
Oh, don't say that. But the process of it is quite different. It's very physical now. We're not dealing with paper. I mean, you're sawing and sanding, and that is obviously something you enjoy. Luckily, you're very fit. We haven't had the chance to say that you're a yoga instructor, so you have a wonderful inner strength as well as outer strength. Do you enjoy that more physical process?
I do, and I do think the yoga does help, because I know if I've been standing for a few hours and I'm tired, I know to go away and do an inversion, do some stretching, come back. Yes, it's so much more physical, and you know, sometimes I'm fiddling around with bits and I think, you know what, get it, just cut it, get the saw. And actually just sawing into a piece, it kind of shifts your headspace from that, I'm not sure what's happening, should I stick this to this, you know, cut it up, changes it. You've now got this solid shape to add to another shape. It's very, very direct.
Well, you've just got so much energy and the mind of doing this and just so exciting. All these different tools, and
I love it. That it's the physical thing, you know, that scratching, and even the physical thing of moving them around, and you know, really working them. I do love it. Yeah.
Really working them, and then you can see how they then work up to these sort of layers of putting them all together. It's just fantastic. I wanted to ask you, this presumably is water, not flat.
It is. That is
it's
water.
Just water. So you
to soften the
paper. Yeah.
So then I can bring it back into it. But it's also really nice when it's like this, when it has a layer of varnish on, that you can carve into it really. And then I can either pick at that or run paint over it, and just keep experimenting, see what happens. All these materials keep giving back.
And you've got a lovely sense of colour. I mean, I know sometimes it's random, but I bet you're clever with your colours as
But then it's working out which ones will work together. You know, these lines, I have to say, have to go. This is far too complicated. That's why it's in here. It needs a lot of work on it. But yeah, maybe it needs simplifying. You know, this is the fun bit, the jigsaw of all these pieces.
You have to be so discerning, because you could just be, I suppose you've got really well trained at that with the collage of deciding what to put on top of what.
Yeah. And sometimes you just think, yeah, I need to cut that bit off. I am using paper and canvas as well, different materials. And this one you talked about here is a mixture of paper and canvas. And I've actually just stapled it together with a staple gun. I didn't want to think about how it was going to be. Finally, I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to staple this together and leave it like that.
And try it out.
Yeah.
And then you could secure it more.
For now.
So, but with these wood ones, are you gluing with wood glue now?
Yeah.
Rather than,
when they're assembled, they need wood glue and clamps and weights. Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, I'll show you the back if I come around there. Because I was working on wood, when I first started doing them, I wasn't using really expensive proper plywood. So now I get a frame for the back. So that, to keep it very solid.
All patched together.
Yeah, the backs are sometimes collaged more than the front, but this aluminium frame is what keeps them flat.
Well, I wonder, because I've had the opportunity of working in a space with you a number of times, and you do work very intuitively, very direct. I mean, this is talking about working with paper, but you're making marks, you're covering them up, you're building stuff up, you're taking it away, you're editing all the time, and you find your images. You know, I can hear you rip up a bit of paper, put it around, but with something more solid and wood, can you still find the work in the same way, or are you having to plan it more and construct to a design more?
I'm at that point. I'm not planning it. I still want it to be that fresh and that spontaneous. So I'm still not planning, which means sometimes there's a long time of shifting and moving, and then something happens. You know, they fit together. So yeah, it is still spontaneous, and it's not. I don't have a finished piece in mind when I start. You know, because it's those surprise elements. Always with collage, the surprise and the chance elements when you put this piece against that piece, and they start to talk to each other, or they don't. But that's when it just, you know it's working. But sometimes it takes a lot of shuffling and juggling around. And because these pieces are so big, sometimes I'm up and down from the floor or a table in this studio space. You know, you find you are quite exhausted by the end of the day.
What's this one we've got here?
This one is Salvage 18. I did a series of about 20, so I couldn't come up with 20 titles. Somebody said recently that they were found pieces of wood from the boatyard. But they're not. They are built up with layers of paper. And I have to give a nod here to Michael Shemchuk, Shem he's known as in US. I did an online course with him during lockdown, and he shared his techniques of layering with layers of paper and varnish. And I'm now using house paints, which is such a relief after acrylic, because you can leave your paintbrushes in the pots of paint for days on end.
Okay, I've just got to ask you, so are you just buying in the UK emulsion?
Yep.
Because often we hear people talking about house paint in the States, and it's latex or it's different.
Yeah, the different names to us.
So everyone will have to find out what
it's water-based paint.
It's difficult to recommend house paint sometimes.
It's the paint you'd put on your walls, so it's not shiny, you know.
You're not buying eggshell or anything.
No, and it's lovely and flat, and it's cheap. And, you know, it connects back to my love of silkscreen printing.
Big flat
college,
areas,
flat shape.
Colour.
Yeah. But then when you've layered up these papers, you sand back and scratch back into them, and you get these lovely chips of surfaces coming, you know, different things coming from underneath, which you don't know what's going to be under there because you can't remember where you stuck things, but they start to come through.
Yeah.
So that is the process I'm using now.
Little chips
as well as
coming
painting,
through, isn't it?
Yeah.
As well as painting and letting marks.
Yeah. And I'm adding acrylic sometimes back on top. But more and more it's becoming about the fixings and the making and the collage. That's becoming more of the subject than the actual boats. It's the actual technique, the physical technique.
It's all about the process.
Yeah.
And then I love the different scales, because we've seen an imagery of the shelf with small ones, and they almost communicate. In fact, we must talk about flotsam and jetsam while we're doing this, because you can't help but make things. You just can. Tell us about the characters.
So the little flotsam and jetsam pieces, the little sculptures that I made, they're from beach combing, so that, you know, all those beautiful gaudy colours you find on the beach. And then one day I was in the studio, I thought, I'm going to fix them together, but I'm going to just fix them with elastic bands. So there's often 2-3 pieces fixed together. They are like my studies. I go and play around those little pieces. They become these mini sculptures, which are connecting more and more to these assemblages. So if you look at these here, these connect to those little characters in my studio, definitely. They're quirky, they're full of character. They're communicating with each other. So that's what I get from those little sculptures.
There's a real sense of humour and sort of, I don't want to use the word irreverence, but it's sort of, you're quite cheeky, Karen.
Yeah, well, I do. I want them to be a bit cheeky and even a bit gobby. I want them to be playful,
Yeah, and that's what's so adorable about them almost. You sort of,
there is some irreverence about them, and a bit brazen and a bit, endearing, and happy.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, this is something I'd like to come back to, whether we're talking about your colourful paintings or this work. It all feels very uplifting and happy and positive. But what we haven't really discussed is, through a lot of all your work, you're working full-time as the head of an art department for 15, 20 years of a large school just outside Cambridge. You juggle being a yoga teacher, running your art courses in France and things. It must be hard. I mean, you must be super organised, but all the work feels fantastic. But what do you find hard?
When I was working full-time and running my art holidays and teaching yoga, you didn't think about it. This was pre-lockdown. Yeah? We didn't think about it. We all just went along at 100 miles an hour, and you knew that it's saying, give a busy person a job.
Yeah, if you want something done, give it to a busy person.
Yeah. And I did just used to go along doing all the work. But then in about 2017, 18, I stopped teaching by then. I decided I wanted to do my own work and do my trips overseas with groups of people. But so I didn't find that hard, doing all that work. What do I find hard?
What do you find hard? Because the work feels very uplifting and joyful, but there must be aspects of it that are just really challenging and frustrating.
Yeah, there's all that studio angst of, how am I going to make this work? Why isn't it got the magic? Because that magic comes every so often. It doesn't come every day at all, does it? But it's working through to that point. Difficulties, I can tell you. What I actually found difficult, probably during the Nicholas Wilton course as well, was actually working with paint. Coming from a collage background, you see other people have made these beautiful marks with a paintbrush, and you think, well, I can do that. I can paint. And you realise how hard it is to make those gorgeous marks and shapes. So that was a difficulty for me during
But you've got all those lovely brushes and things.
I have all those lovely brushes. Do you notice a lot of them aren't even dirty? Those ones hanging on the wall.
So what are your favourite tools for using paint?
Oh,
paint around.
My favourite tool is a scraper at the moment. I'm looking at my tool table. A scraper and an old compass that I scratch with. A scraper and a roller for rolling the paper down. And my brother recently gave me a multi-tool, which you can cut it. I'll show you a demo later. That's my favourite tool. Yeah.
Have you looked to or that inspire the way you work? And
this was years ago when I was at art college on that travel scholarship. I do remember first seeing a Matisse, and it was the snail in Paris. And I remember what I noticed was the pinholes and the creases along the edges of the paper where it had been folded and cut. So yeah, definitely Matisse, and of course
Schwitter's nail.
Yeah, those big pieces. And he had assistants who painted his sheets of paper, didn't he? When he was in a wheelchair, they pinned them on the wall.
Yes, but he was in his 80s by then.
Yeah, but I'm looking for an assistant. Do you know any? To paint my sheets of paper. Yeah, he was in his 80s then, but they're still so fresh.
So fresh.
Yeah.
I remember seeing it for the first time too, actually, funny enough, in New York.
Wow.
After I'd been travelling and backpacking for 6 months, and I saved my last few dollars and walked to it must be MoMA, the catalogue I still have and love. And, they just hit you. I mean, I still remember the first time I've met lots of paintings in the flesh.
Yeah.
I can remember seeing a Cézanne years ago on a school trip. But, it's
that immediacy.
It's immediacy.
Yeah. And the freshness in his 80s and how that's what he was turning.
And I interrupted you. You said Matisse, and then you said...
Kurt Schwitters.
Yes.
Yeah. Just, we didn't have Instagram. We didn't have all those artists at our fingertips. You only knew the ones that were in books. And television.
So this wonderful, bold, collage assemblages, I think I'm going to call them flat sculptures,
yes,
feel to me very ambitious and courageous. And I wonder how you feel about them.
I feel so excited about them because they just feel me, absolutely. You know, people say when you find your voice, you'll know. But they just feel right because they're physical, because they're life-size quite often, because they're connected to my roots of the boatyards and everything. You know, I grew up in a family where we all did lots of DIY home improvements, you know, and we were always painting, or I was always helping my dad while he was sewing something. So I think all that is coming in. They feel very right for me.
Your root.
To my roots. So I'm really excited about them. I haven't really got them out there in the world yet.
So what are your dreams and aspirations for this collection of work? And let's go desire board type. Let's think big. What are your hopes for these pieces?
Well, do you know, when we did it with Nicholas and we did our hopes, I visualised 3 massive pieces on a wall in a gallery, and I could really feel it at that time as CVB. It was like, oh. So now for these pieces, I want them all together, maybe 20 or more, in a gallery. It's got to be urban, shoreline, you know, on the coast somewhere, but not pretty seaside. It's got to be quite gritty.
Something comes to mind.
A solo show where?
So the Tate, Liverpool.
All right, okay, yeah. Just need some connections there.
Just need some connections there. The biggest national museum in the country. But you need somewhere slightly industrial, spacious light. Yeah. I mean, these are going to go bigger and bigger. I mean, strong. I mean, how do you know when to stop? Because they could just get, as you're going on with them. Yeah. Is it like a painting? Does it just feel like you've reached the right point with it? How do you know when to stop?
Some you know, but you absolutely know. Sometimes, like say 2, 3 pieces, it works. Leave that one alone. But then sometimes when I put them against a wall like they are in here, or on the floor, and then I accidentally just leave them there, and you step back and think, actually, they're working by themselves now. Or you start putting together like a jigsaw, and it can go 10 foot by 10 foot. It's quite confusing, you know. Obviously, we need simplifying. But yes, the way they connect with each other can become really exciting as well. But I don't have the space to play with that.
So people probably have to buy whole series. Yeah, you can't just go home with one. But have you been exhibiting recently otherwise, or got any this next year?
This year's been quite good. I've had the Discerning Eye exhibition in the Mall Galleries in London, and Society of Women Artists. I'm a member of their association.
And you won prizes at these things historically, normally. I always see you winning prizes.
Yeah, one year I won a prize for a body of work, which was really nice because it was from another artist, that prize. And I had, which was really exciting, some work in Ant Gallery in Edinburgh, which is a really exciting gallery with wall sculptures. That's mainly what they do. And they've offered me part of a group show next summer. So I think it's a group of maybe 4 artists. So that's really exciting. That's the one I'm working towards really for next year. Yeah.
Oh, exciting. That sounds brilliant. So you're beavering away, you're cutting, you're sawing, you're sanding and all these things. And then what is the sort of valuable information that you give to yourself? Do you have thoughts to help you keep going?
One of the things I have to remind myself is to have fun, because so often we're so serious and we're working away and we're trying to produce a piece and you think, hang on a minute, this is supposed to be fun as well. So yeah, have fun. I mean, I don't mean silly, happy fun, but make sure you're smiling sometimes as well. And to keep pushing and pushing through, because, you know, things happen when you push it to the limits. If you're playing safe, you're going to stay in the safe area, but keep pushing through to new, exciting ways, yeah.
So, but it's interesting balancing, because you've got to play and be spontaneous, and then at some stage you've got to switch into the other brain of being objective and balancing.
Yeah, that's what we have to do.
Backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
That's it.
And not listening to that little critic saying, you know, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? You know, just keep pushing. For me, it's the excitement of finding new ways of making things work as well. You know, the mixed media, creasing the paper, pushing it, scratching it, all those things. I have this quote on my studio wall, and it's by Judi Dench, who is an actress in England, in the UK. Well, you probably heard of her. And it is, shock them into focus with the clarity of your intent. So if you think about that, shock them, your audience, into focus with the clarity of your intent, which really makes you work clearly.
fantastic. Karen, I can't thank you enough. It's been so interesting seeing the development of your work. I mean, it really has developed, but also you seem to have always had your own stamp on it. You've got a very clear voice, and you've noticed what you've liked, and you've really explored it. You've been fearless in your exploration of your subject, and it's just been really wonderful to be here with you and kindly to share this time and space. So thank you very much.
Thank you.